Ever since the Wright brothers decided to put their plans into action, human beings knew that a new form of travel was just around the corner. And as the years went on, international flights became a staple of the business world, being used to ensure that people from all over the globe could travel just about anywhere they needed to. Things have, however, changed quite drastically due to the global health situation. But how have they changed? And is it even possible for our society to adjust? Well, whether you're waiting to travel to another country or just want to know more about how the world will adjust to rebound on travel, you've come to the right place, as we're about to explore the different ways in which international travel is bound to change. So strap yourselves in and get ready to fly, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with the notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. The change. Before 2020 came, around the world was focused on Wuhan, China, where a health situation was wreaking havoc on the general population. We knew that things were bad on that side, but we had no idea just how much our lives were about to change with the effects of the region slowly but surely spreading across to the rest of the world. With the introduction of the new year came a rise in international cases of the illness, causing nations like Italy and England to fall to their knees. Worse yet, the United States was in the midst of its own political division, with former President Trump downplaying the extent of the situation and referring to the illness as nothing more than a common cold. With time, nations discovered the only way to curb the spread was to enter a hard lockdown, and this is what had helped those in mainland China. One by one, countries and states alike locked down their borders and implemented quarantine measures to ensure that people were keeping as socially distant from one another as possible. Mask mandates were implemented and hand sanitizer was made readily available after a strange time of hoarding both toilet paper and cleaning products. And finally, after the citizens of some countries listened to and respected to the precautions of the global health situation, these nations began to open up their borders once more. Tourism could no longer suffer as much as it had after all, which is why this was the next step to mending the economy that had been hit so hard by the spread. To the joy of cinephiles, movie sets also opened up back again, allowing our favorite films and series to go back into production. It seemed like the world was getting back to normal again, a fact that was only emphasized when vaccination rollouts started up around the globe. But unfortunately for us, things can't always be that simple. Not all countries have been able to deal with the global health situation the same way, which means that international travel is not exactly back to where it should be. After over a year of waiting to attend to our business in other countries, ranging from work to pleasure, some of us are still waiting for the go-ahead, as only a few countries remain open to everyone to date. And when international travel does eventually open up to all, things will have to change again. Let's see how. Number 1. A demand for sustainability. If there's one thing we have learned from the global health situation, it's that we all used to live pretty carefree lives. Sure, there were always bills to worry about and underlying health conditions to take care of, but when it came to hygiene, the idea was that you get clean at least once a day through the use of a shower or bath. The washing of hands took place more often than not, but if you missed out on the habit, it wasn't exactly the end of the world. Nowadays, we have become so concerned with hygiene that we almost feel empty if we are out and haven't sanitized in over an hour. And surprisingly enough, this focus on staying as clean as possible has caused a noticeable change when it comes to our overall health. In fact, reports indicate that some now have gone an entire year without contracting any illnesses at all, showing just how important hygiene is when it comes to staying healthy. In the same sense that people are focusing more inwardly on themselves, they have too developed a lot more empathy for the rest of the world. There's something about having to deal with a common enemy that has the effect of bringing human beings together after all. As such, consumers appear to be doubling down on sustainability. According to travel author Elizabeth Beck, it's likely that travelers will take on the role of concerned citizens now that they know the dangers of an outbreak. It is predicted that the industry will respond with active measures to prioritize a healthy world over profit margins, as an unhealthy world is clearly the worst thing for an airliner's profit margin. This is a small step in the right direction, with this concern for one another hopefully resulting in a concern for the Earth in general, which has been suffering since the age of industrialization. A great number of people have been doing their best to do what they can to fight against global warming, but there's no doubt that companies need to be convinced of the importance of taking things back to where they were. According to Becker, the prediction is that the global health situation has lit a fire under a great number of companies, with countries possibly going as far as mandating fly-free days to combat climate change. Whether this will indeed be the case, we'll just have to wait and see, but it would be a shame if we went back to the way we were before the devastating effects of the global health situation. We can be better and should be. Number 2. Inclusivity will become the name of the game. Another impact that the world has felt over the last year or so has been the effects of the Black Lives Matter movement. And regardless of whether we agree with the manner that the group has tackled the idea of racial inequality, it cannot be denied that this is indeed a thing in the world. Think of how former President Trump's rhetoric about the global health situation has now resulted in some Americans acting out against Chinese citizens in the country, with Asian Americans suffering the brunt of hate crimes over the past year. As we have said earlier, there is something beautiful about suffering through the same common evil, which doesn't seem to care about religion, race, or creed. As such, there is hope that things will begin to change now that we know precisely what others are going through, regardless of how different they might act or think to us. Sarah Greaves Gabadan, an award-winning journalist and television host, tends to agree with us, stating that the air travel industry will more likely move towards meaningful change when it comes to the topic of inclusivity. It is important to have a certain amount of diversity on board, especially when dealing with long travels where passengers really come to know their in-flight staff and draw comfort from them. And so long as all in-flight staff have the same amount of training and charisma, there shouldn't be any reason for not making flights as diverse and inclusive as possible. But while we are cautiously optimistic about how things are looking right now, we are completely convinced that things won't return back to normal after important hashtags have stopped trending. According to Martini Q. Lewis of Black Travel Alliance, things do seem to be moving in the right direction though. She has noted that companies are the first time actually putting themselves in their employees' and customers' shoes. There are a bunch of travelers spanning from the blind to morbidly obese who are so much different from us and require a lot more assistance when traveling from place to place. The hope is that international travel will change to account for this diversity, with inclusivity becoming the overarching name of the game. Number 3, there will be an increase in travel to smaller communities. When international travel does pick up once again, and people who have been quarantined for over a year decide to go outside and relax in a foreign destination, safety will be a primary concern. The concept of social distancing has been so ingrained within us now that we tend to get anxious when surrounded by a large group of people. What used to make some people feel a lot safer than when alone now strikes fear into those very same citizens. This is why many people believe that kicking off international travel will result in a great number of people traveling to places that are far less attractive to the rest of the world. Rather than finding themselves in Paris or Rome, where there will undoubtedly be a large crowd of waiting tourists, many will find themselves in smaller communities, where tourism isn't considered to be the main source of income for the region. This will have the positive effect of propping up smaller communities and towns that may be struggling financially. According to Kate Newman of Travel for Difference, the hope is that the global health situation will result in more travelers focusing on the global south, as they call it. Number 4, an emphasis will be placed on quality over quantity. Last but not least, since most countries will remain closed until they're able to get their vaccination rollouts underway, people filled with wanderlust will no longer be able to travel from place to place at will. Since there will be a number of regulations and safety precautions in place when it comes to international travel, it will be easier to travel to a single country and explore more rather than multiple countries with the intention of exploring less. This essentially means that tourists will likely emphasize quality of stay and experience over and above quantity, with there being far too much effort involved in hopping between countries, that is, until things actually return to normal in a few years' time. What do you think about the coming changes? Feel free to let us know in the comment section down below.